Welcome to the Medicine Revived podcast. Have you noticed that the world of medicine is rapidly changing? Doctors, are you working more with less? Are you burning out? I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be so. Welcome to the Medicine Revived podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Harry Caritas, an emergency physician who is here to teach you the skills needed to learn, grow, and thrive in medicine. I want you to take back control of your professional and your personal life. Are you interested in learning the strategies experts use to lead and live a high-performance life? I'm here to help. I'm here to help you, the working doctor, achieve the life that you want. Not to beat burnout, rather achieve wellness. Let's start the show. Well, hey there, Dr. Harry Caritas again from the Medicine Revive podcast and blog. And welcome back. Welcome back to another great week, another week down, and another week ahead of us. So thank you again for joining me on another show. And if you're a new listener, welcome. Welcome. You're in good company. You're among friends here and physicians here who want to learn, grow, and thrive in medicine. And how do we do that? Well, every week I talk about resources and tips and tactics and habits and rituals that great leaders use inside and outside of medicine to live the life that they've always wanted and always dreamt for themselves. But sometimes we get bogged down in the nitty-gritty of it, and then burnout starts happening, and then all of a sudden you're 5-10 years into your career and you're just looking back and you're asking yourself, well, what have I done? And then how do I get out of this? How do I get out of the dark days and the dark hole of burnout? And that's what I'm here to help with every single week and every single day. And this week's episode will be on social connections. And how do we do that? How do we build strong social connections in medicine? And this topic is, I think, so very important, especially as we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, where social distancing is what's been asked and encouraged and recommended, of course, but then there's this need for strong social connections. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because friends, as humans, we are wired to connect with each other. And fostering these strong social connections in medicine is a critical piece for our wellness. Because friends, physician burnout stems from many dimensions, but what is a common thread is that of social isolation. As medicine continues to become more and more specialized, hyper-specialized perhaps, the more social isolation a physician encounters. It's no surprise that there is an increase in depressive symptoms and suicidality. And you guys have seen this. All of you have seen this, right? Especially if you're an internist or a hospitalist, you could easily go through your day and not physically talk with a specialist. Specialist comes in, does their consult, and goes about on their next consult. And then we don't have that connection anymore. And this has been changing. And this is, I feel, a big problem in medicine, because we become more and more siloed and we don't talk with each other anymore. And I think that's a huge problem. The importance of social connections in medicine cannot be understated. You see, social support and connecting with others, especially in medicine, needs to be a priority for our overall health and wellness. And by creating a community, I feel that can be an antidote toward this crippling adversity we sometimes feel as we go through our day-to-day responsibilities. So why is that? Why are social connections important? Well, we may have a vague idea of a community's importance. Many don't appreciate the incredible power it has toward our overall mental and physical and emotional health. Dr. Emma Seppala, she's the science director of Stanford University Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, mentions that strong connections, number one, leads to a 50% increase of longevity. Number two, it strengthens your immune system. Number three, helps you recover from disease faster. Number four, lowers your level of anxiety and depression. And finally, number five, gives you a higher self-esteem and greater empathy. So what I call it the loneliness crisis. The loneliness crisis in medicine. If you've been readers of my blog or listeners of my podcast for any length of time, you've heard me say this before many, many times, that as physicians, too many of us suffer in solitude. Despite the clear importance of our health and survival, personally and professionally, we neglect to reach out to others for help. And the reasons for this are many. Some are real and many, unfortunately, are perceived. But at the heart of it, maybe this perception of a weakness, or perhaps we have no one to reach out to. This perception of weakness that we have, perhaps we don't even have anybody to reach out to. There is a 2004 landmark sociologic study that revealed that 25% of Americans have no one to confide in. No one to confide in. This survey suggests that 1 in 4 individuals have no one they call a close friend or a confidant. And this lack of social connections makes one especially vulnerable to disease and death, far above the known cardiovascular risk factors that all of us can quickly rattle off. Things such as smoking, hypertension, and lack of physical activity. So why is it? Why is the need for social connection so important? Brene Brown, who many of you know and I'm a huge fan of, but Brene Brown, who's a researcher and the author of so many best-selling books such as Dare to Lead, Daring Greatly, and Braving the Wilderness. She had a wonderful interview with Dr. Seppala, and if you're interested in Dr. Brene Brown, I've included the links to her books that I've read. I've read these 3, and I really recommend you put them in your library. But in an interview with Dr. Seppala, she had mentioned that, quote, a deep sense of love and belonging is an irresistible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, and we get sick, end quote. And I think she nailed it. What do you guys think? I think she absolutely nailed it with that piece of that interview. We are profoundly and deeply social creatures, friends. Undoubtedly, we seek and desire the need to be loved and to be part of a community. Abraham Maslow, who many of us know, many of us remember learning about him in medical school. He's an American psychologist known for creating his theory on the hierarchy of needs. It includes the importance of social connections, which he called love and belongingness. According to Maslow, feeling part of a group larger than oneself is essential for your human health and happiness. So you may be asking yourself, okay, that's all well and good, Harry, but now what? So now what? As you know, here at Medicine Revived, I will always give you resources, tactics, and actionable plans to learn, grow, and thrive in medicine. That's what I do. And I want everyone to understand that social connections are as critical to your well-being as anything else I talk about. So I feel that there are 3 principles to social connections. And the first one is that of socializing. So it may seem intuitive, but get out there and socialize with others. And I've heard the excuses, perhaps I've even given them myself, right? The typical excuse that I hear is that there's simply not enough time to socialize or spend time with others. And that, friends, frankly, is just not true. It's just not true. It's an excuse that it just must leave your vocabulary. You know it and I know it. Friends are vital and especially important at work. They help us during crises and turbulent times at work. They provide you the emotional and the psychological strength to move through these sometimes challenging days. We've all been there, right? We all need a friend to lean on at work, especially if you've recently joined a group practice, perhaps, and participate in their work-related activities. Is there a weekly softball game? How about a monthly journal or book club? Consider hosting one of these events if there's not one already established in your group. Another option is to ask a small group of just some friends and some colleagues for some drinks after work or just a small meal. The whole point is just to get out there, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. It just has to be literally just 30 minutes, just hanging out with somebody else. This casual atmosphere will open conversations and connect you with people in a non-work setting. And that's the goal here, just to go ahead and meet people. It's incredibly uplifting, especially after a rough shift. And for some of us, making friends at work is harder than others. I get it. Some of us are introverted. Our job is hard and sometimes lonely. But having a common bond with friends at work is such a great thing. It's such a wonderful thing, and it can transform your workday from average to extraordinary. Make it a point to seek out these relationships. So the second thing I want to talk to you about is to create this tribe of mentors, as I call it. So this tribe of mentors, this community of medicine, has fed us a steady diet of rugged individualism. Very early in our medical training, to our detriment, I feel, we are taught to be self-sufficient, independent, and, air quotes, the captain of one's own ship. I've caught myself saying it many, many times, but if we're honest with ourselves, we would have never, ever achieved the title of physician had it not been for the instruction and mentoring of senior physicians, senior residents, and attendings. Yet, sadly though, when we leave residency, we stop seeking this mentorship. The value of a good mentor, friends, is incalculable. This mentor will provide you a small progressive goals for improving, but more importantly, it will give you the feedback to improve your own craft. Put your pride aside. Put your pride and ego aside and look for that teacher that will challenge you and occasionally make you uncomfortable. Dr. Atul Gawande, who I've talked about many, many times, he's a surgeon and New York Times bestseller, public health leader, and he has a fantastic essay, which I've linked in the blog post that accompanies this podcast in the New Yorker on the value of a coach in the operating room. So Dr. Gawande, a renowned general surgeon and endocrine surgeon at the Brigham and Women's Children's Hospital, had asked his retired colleague, Dr. Robert Osteen, whom he trained during residency, to observe him during surgery and to provide him feedback. And even 8 years into his practice, Dr. Gawande knew the importance of a good coach toward lifelong improvements. And this is the essence of a lifelong learner. But I want you to take this one step farther. I want you to take this absolutely one more step farther and create a tribe of mentors for yourself. I feel that every successful physician should create his or her own tribe of mentors. When success guru Napoleon Hill interviewed Andrew Carnegie about the secret of his success, he replied that it can be traced back to what he calls, quote, the sum total of the minds, end quote, of his business partners. And in his book, The Law of Success, Hill defines this mastermind group as a, quote, a mind that is developed through the harmonious cooperation of two or more people who ally themselves for the purpose of accompanying any given task, end quote. And when we gather together as a small, cohesive group to toss around ideas, discuss and debate, criticize and inspire each other, we will, as a group, collectively, we will group together individually and collectively. And creating a tribe of mentors will take you farther than we could have done individually. There's a story of Clydesdale horses where one Clydesdale can pull so much and another Clydesdale can pull so much as well, but you put them together and it's actually not additive. It's actually multiples more that they can pull together. And that's what I look at when I talk about creating a tribe of mentors. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 when you have a tribe. It is multiples more. So how do you create your tribe of mentors? Well, first thing is you look for physicians interested in personal growth and physician wellness and pushing past personal limitations, real or imagined. You have to find somebody who's interested in this. And you might say to yourself, well, there's nobody interested in this, but there is. You just have to ask the questions. You just have to ask around. And you have to look within your network first, approach your peers and colleagues inside your specialty and out. And that's what I actually encourage you to do. Actually, it's easy to go in your specialty. I think that's very, very easy for us to do. And I encourage you to start there first, but also reach out to folks outside your specialties. You'll appreciate their different view on life and different views on medicine. So I really, really encourage you to look outside your specialty as well. And also, very, very important is look for individuals at different stages in their careers. Different stage in their career. Look for the younger physician. If you're a younger physician, look for physicians in the middle of the road, middle career, and look for senior members in your group, and you will get a much, much different perspective on medicine, the good and the bad. And that's what's important. And keep it small. That's important when you're creating this tribe of mentors. Keep it small, 5, 8 people max, I would say. But try to do 3 and 5. 3 to 5 is a good start, and then add it as you feel that it's necessary. And finally, create a sense of belonging, friends. Our well-being rests on the connection we have with others. And when we feel we belong, we experience a richness in life, physical health, and mental health. And having a sense of belonging protects us against physician burnout. This is distinct from loneliness. I want to be very clear on this. One can have many social connections but still feel lonely, while one can have few strong social connections and feel fulfilled and having a strong sense of belonging. So don't get those two things mixed up. Again, you've heard it before. You have so many friends and then you're so lonely. It's because you don't have strong social connections. And I want you to have strong social connections and to create them. And a great way to create a strong sense of belonging is to do acts of service and kindness for others. And volunteering is a natural extension of this. And again, I'm going to challenge all of you, because the common excuse for not volunteering is we don't have time. I can't carve out 1 hour of time a week. And I think that's not, if you're really honest with yourself, that's not correct. Spending just 1 to 2 hours per week will reap an incredible return on your mental and your emotional health. So how do you do? Well, you start locally first. As many things in life start locally first. You got to pick the flowers closest to you. So that's what I would do. Find something that you are interested in. Undoubtedly, there will be an opportunity to volunteer. But if you need some more guidance, there are websites that can help you find volunteer opportunities. The websites that I've found most helpful are volunteermatch.org. There's another one called idealist.org, allforgood.org, and there's one called catchafire.org. And catchafire.org will match you with your skill set. And I've included these links in the podcast, or in the blog that accompanies this podcast as well. So friends, let's start today. Strong connections have a tremendous impact on wellness and a key ingredient in emerging from the ashes of physician burnout. So good friends will help relieve stress and anxiety, bring more happiness and comfort to our lives, and will prevent loneliness and isolation. And significant and long-lasting connections, they just don't happen, friends. They just don't happen, though. You have to be intentional, willing to step out of your comfort zone and actively seek out these connections. But once you do, you'll find yourself among a huge and rich, vibrant network of friends that will walk with you through your journey in medicine. So let's start today, shall we? I will end it with a quote from Zig Ziglar, who you know I'm a fan of, but he says, if you go out looking for friends, you're going to find them very scarce. If you go out to be a friend, you'll find them everywhere. I think that's a good place to stop for today. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. And I do have an ask of you. If you found the podcast helpful, if you found it useful, then I please ask that you share it with other people, other friends and colleagues, because that's how we get more ears to the podcast. But also, if you're feeling especially loving, please go to iTunes and give this podcast a 5-star review. And I've most recently started over the past month or so, started a new segment called Ask Me Thursdays, where I will answer one of your questions in a short video and blog post. So if you're interested in asking me a question, there will be a link in the blog post that accompanies this podcast where you just submit your question and I'm happy to answer it. So again, I thank you everyone for all the work that you're doing. Remember that it is a difficult job, and I know it is a difficult job for all of us, especially during this time, but what you do matters, and I want you to be well, be good to each other, and until next time, we'll talk again soon.